Every October in our house, we make a trip to western North Dakota. My brother-in-law and his family own a ranch just west of Bismarck. We go to pick up our meat supply for the year, and I used to think it was all about the meat, but in truth, it's about the connection. Prepping for the trip physically and mentally always feels like a hassle, but once we're there, we're just so thankful for the journey. Western North Dakota is beautiful, unique, and ancient. It is one of the few remaining places in North America where you can go and see what the New World was like long before the great Northern European migration. And walking across the land makes you feel like you're on the set of Dances with the Wolves. Matter of fact, the spot where my daughter Britta is walking up to, just in front of her where I'm standing, is a bluff where you can see the rock circles where teepees used to stand. They liked to be there from that spot. They could catch a summer breeze, and they could see the wildlife coming and hunt on the horizon. On Friday night, we traveled to a ranch south of Mandan for a dinner party. Their son-in-law's brother was recognized by the certified Angus beef brand, and we were joining them to celebrate. The land south of Mandan is even more undisturbed looking. Some buttes, these rises in the land, the sides of them had washed away, and one could see the different layers of the Earth's formation. And if you took time, each layer told a different story of creation and formation. We got to our destination early and helped set up for the guests to come. And when we were done, I wanted to walk. I went out. The calves were in the pen on the hill. The sun was setting behind them, and on either side of them were two sun dogs. So I had an idea for a picture, and I set out to capture that shot right there. I thought I heard someone calling my name, so I turned around. I didn't see anybody, so I thought it was just the wind. When I returned to the house, everybody was gone. They left to go to a new location. And I walked to rejoin the group, and when I saw Peggy, she asked me, "Didn't you get my text?" And I looked at my phone, and just as I looked at my phone, it came through, "Come back now." So I said, "Yes, I just got it." Most of the ranch is down in a coulee, and I asked my brother-in-law, "Do they get cell phone reception there?" And he said, "No, rarely." A momentary panic set in my heart. How do you live like that? If you can't get cell phone reception, you are very, very vulnerable. Then I remembered. Human beings have existed for approximately 300,000 years without this technology. It's probably going to be okay. But the incident caused me to look within, to see how much my heart and my own reality has been reformed by cell phone technology. Technology has radically changed what we can do and how we do life, both in terms of work, recreation, and faith. More importantly, it has changed us. The Stroman Ranch south of Mandan is a good-sized operation. Today, 3 people manage it, but 100 years ago, it would take a large workforce of cowboys to operate something that size. 80 years ago, my sister-in-law was telling us her grandfather owned a thrashing machine. And he was unique and special, and he contracted out with the other farmers and ranchers his services. Now, those thrashing machines now dot the landscape as tributes to an old relic and a past way of life. They have given way to $700,000 John Deere combines with satellite-guided steering systems on them. From an outsider's perspective, you can see in the ranching lifestyle and that farming lifestyle the blessing and the curses of rural America. Technology has made things more simple and possible on the ranch and the farm, but it's also changed the financial stakes of the operation. It's changed the family, and it has changed the culture. Sometimes when I listen to them speak, it is as though they want to vote themselves back to what they lost. They grieve a way of life all the time. But to truly get back, they would need to give up the technology. So neither is going to happen. They need to reform their hearts into what they greatly desire. And in many ways they have it, but they are just blind to its existence. Now, as I was thinking those thoughts, I go, one of the things that's really amazing, it is easier, so much easier to see the speck in your neighbor's eye than the log in your own. The blessing and curses of technology are reforming the hearts of urban and suburban people as well. The culture of my home. I always sit there and think about the culture of my home radically changed when our children and my wife and I stopped sharing one desktop computer. And that sounds like a funny whining, because like our earlier generations go, I remember when we didn't have water, and I remember when we didn't have electricity, and I put out the suffering. I remember when we had one desktop computer. Oh, the suffering. But when we stopped sharing that one desktop computer for everyone having their own laptop, the culture changed. The sharing nurtured patience, conversation, reconciliation, and connection. The laptops killed community in favor of isolation. I think all of us want to retain the benefits technology offers, but get back to those things we lost. It's just that no one can figure out how to do it. On Monday morning, Daniel and we meet to plan worship and talk about the sermon and the music, how they're going to interact. And when I was describing where I wanted to go with this sermon, he presented a wonderful analogy. He said the change in the culture is like moving furniture in the home of someone who is blind. I sat there and I thought about it, like, that is a great image, a great analogy. If you are my age, the world began to radically change in the middle of life. The internet and cell phones increased the speed of change that was already beginning, and we were being warned it was coming. But really, it was right around 2000 that technology entered in the homes and the hearts of the people. And before then, we were all living a life we had been taught to live by our parents and our grandparents. Life, even though technology increased, wasn't all that different. Our parents and grandparents described for us where the furniture in the house was, and they taught us how to navigate that furniture. But technology came in, and as we were marveling at this new phenomena, all the furniture changed. Somebody came and moved it around. And ever since, we've been bumping into things, and we never know where they are or where we should be and should not be and what we're going to walk into. To be well, healthy, safe, secure, we either need to figure out this new furniture arrangement or gain sight. Today, we read the story of Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar sitting on the side of the road. Even though these small basic facts says a lot about the character in the story, because he has a name and a family name, he has a family, one that he must remain connected to in some way to be known by that name. The fact that he is blind and begging means he has been removed from the culture of his family, from labor, and most likely from religion as well. He's isolated, and he's seeking a way to be connected, to have life. And even though he is isolated, he knows enough to call Jesus Son of David. This might mean nothing to us, but Bartimaeus is the first person in the Gospel of Mark to give Jesus this title. It is a title reserved for one who has royal lineage, and it is a necessary connection for him to be considered the Messiah. And despite people telling him to be quiet, Jesus calls Bartimaeus out, invites him to make a request. And we read a line that, in reading it, if you're exempt from the larger story, it goes unnoticed, but it has big, profound meaning. Jesus says to him, "What do you want from me?" Just kind of flows with the story. But if you knew the whole chapter, James and John, right before the story, like Bartimaeus, make a request of their rabbi, of their teacher, which prompts Jesus to ask them as well, "What do you want from me?" James and John are not blind. They're not isolated. They have been walking in the way of their rabbi for a long time. They should have sight. They should know. But they ask him to sit. Can we sit one on your left and one on your right in the presence of the Lord in his glory? So now we know, for all their sight and dedication, they are absolutely blind to the mission. In contrast, the one who is blind requests eyes to see so he can follow the way. The blind man understands Jesus is moving in a direction others cannot see, but he wants to join in. When I read this story, it's hard for me not to see James and John as the institutional church, who has been following in a very faithful manner for quite some time, but somewhere along the way lost sight of the mission. St. Francis of Assisi, Martin Luther, John Wesley are all known to us because, like blind beggars, they have refused to follow like James and John, blind to the bigger mission of the church. They called out for sight in their communities. They were granted that sight, and they wanted to pass that sight on to others around them. They prayed for sight, and for each one, they became a leader of a movement that reformed the institutional church. At that time of their times, the church was obsessed how ministry was done, not what ministry needed to accomplish. Ministry was about connecting people to Jesus for the transformation of the world. Now we stand in one of those defining moments right now. How we have always done something is not connecting. We need to reform our ministry to meet the needs of the blind who stand on the side of the road begging for life. In many ways, people are not begging for church per se, but people are begging to see life, abundant life, and healthy life. And we need to help people discover this life. We do this by connecting people to Jesus. It should be noted that Bartimaeus is not healed in the temple or in a synagogue. Jesus meets people where they are at, not where he wants them to be. So too, we need to meet people where they are at, and not where we want them to be. One of the other lines of interest is Jesus tells Bartimaeus, "Your faith has made you well." I always think that if you read a line like that, whenever you read faith, replace it with the word trust. Your trust has made you well. We need to hear this line, meditate on it, soak it into the depths of our heart. Despite every force taking place in the universe at this moment in time, faith can still make us well. Which is not to suggest we can believe our way into health. Jesus is the one who heals. Not Methodism, not Lutheranism, not Catholicism. Jesus has the power through the Holy Spirit to save. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, regardless of any new invention to come. We have not been left alone in this world. The furniture in our house has been moved around, and we can't always see where it's been moved to, but we need to pray, "Teacher, I want to see," and trust Jesus to give us vision to see. Warning. There's a big warning with that. And it might be a comfortable thing to hear. With sight, we will need to throw off our cloak and get up and follow the way. If you trust technology in your life, you're going to find yourself in a place without cell phone reception. You will be subject to power outages that will leave you vulnerable. Every time the furniture changes, you will be lost, and the furniture is always going to be changing. But those who trust Jesus for sight are never alone. They're never lost, and they're never blind. Instead, they are well. Our ending, the ending of the sermon, is really a prayer to Jesus that we may be reformed. Reform our eyes to see your presence, a heart to feel your hope in our lives, and it's the strength to throw off our cloak and follow the way you would have us go. When this happens, we know we are on the way to being well. Amen.